All right, we are live. All right, so Jeff Berckes here. I've got Daniel Horine. He is Pop Fly Pop Shop. We're going to talk about this really cool collaboration he had with Dick Butkus. We're going to talk about his artwork. We're going to talk about some other Chicago Bears artwork. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I've written some stories about. Really excited. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to come on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is really cool. Came across this on Twitter. And of course, the great Dick Butkus retweeted something and said, "Hey, if would you guys be interested in buying some sort of artwork if we paired with an artist?" And I was like, "Yes. Where do I sign up? What's going on here, Mr. Maestro of Mayhem, right?" And then before I knew it, he tweeted out the image. Really cool stuff. And so we'll show the image here in a bit. I've got the website down at the bottom. And what's going on here. We're going to go through some images, but I just want to get an idea of where you're coming from. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into artwork and comic books and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I've been doing art since as long as I have a memory. There's no point that I can even think of that I wasn't drawing on something, making something. It's just always been present in my life. And when I get older, I just continued and I ended up doing it for a career, sort of, a corporate version of art, so sort of art adjacent.
Sure.
And then now doing this project full time, but a lot of this project is about looking backwards. And so, also with growing up with art, I love comics, I love sports, and looking backwards, through the reflection that COVID gave us, being inside for a while and losing my father right before this, there's a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, and this project kind of came out of a lot of that, just looking at the 10-year-old version of myself.
So I've read a little bit on your website, and you were on an ESPN baseball program talking about the artwork because someone had your images up behind them, so you got a chance to have a slightly bigger venue than what this is. So I think it's important to note that most of what you've done is baseball, but you're now just getting into football. So what was the idea behind branching out into football, and where have you gone so far with that?
I think what baseball has really opened up for me is, and full disclosure, like baseball was my sport growing up, and not to play, but to love. And so I have a lot more just institutional knowledge going into baseball. But what I loved about what the project opened for me was seeing sports through a different lens. And what I realized about what baseball was and what sports as a whole is that it's just a long running soap opera with a cast of changing characters, and there's heroes and there's villains and there's underdogs and upsets, and so it's just really, really ripe for great storytelling. And there's characters in there, and the nicknames are fantastic. And it just really lends itself to that kind of storytelling. So it was just a natural progression to, I know baseball. We've done baseball for almost 2 years now. It's like, what are the stories out there that I haven't heard about, I haven't learned about, or what other characters are there? So that's sort of what led to football.
Well, let me share your webpage. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and I've got the Butkus print queued up here. So talk us through a little bit. I'm gonna take off. No, I think you see most of the image here. Talk us through a little bit about the collaboration with Butkus, what your inspiration was for this image, and what goes into putting something like this together.
Sure. Well, this was one that I wanted to do from the beginning. Like you mentioned, football is new for me. I think the Butkus collaboration is only my fourth one in the football. I've done 82 in baseball, but 4 in football. And off the bat, Butkus was someone I wanted to work with. He's my first collaboration with football. And what really drew me to him was his pop culture presence. Like he retired years before I was born, but he still remained in the the social consciousness. We
Sure.
saw him on MacGyver, on Murder She Wrote, and saw him in movies. He still stayed very present and very relevant, and that was my introduction to him, was through those shows. And so especially it's just really interesting. I think kind of pre-internet, that's what you got. I wasn't able to look at highlight reels or anything like that. It was just whatever was on and in front of me at that time. And to be 8, 9, 10 years old, well aware of someone who retired 15, 16, 17 years ago, I think that's really special. I think that's really special about Dick Butkus. So anyway, I really wanted to work with him, and I got the opportunity. And behind every project is a lot of research and a lot of thinking before anything goes on the page, and just kind of absorbing as much as I could about his career and this persona. And we had an interview with him just a couple hours ago, and when I was saying in the interview, he's got so many great nicknames. It was actually hard to pick.
Sure, right.
Pick one. And all the nicknames are ready for comic book storytelling. So anyway, I went with the Maestro of Mayhem and just wanted to highlight that, just the character of the Maestro of Mayhem, because it certainly is a character. You see the comedic side of him on TV, but then there was an on-field persona that he was, and so it was just really interesting to dive into that.
Yeah, he's such a cut up, like everywhere though. Yeah, and the number of nicknames, and I had a project. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I had a project and I had a hard time figuring out what nickname I wanted to use because they're so great. But I want to talk a little bit. So this is for sale now, and your business model is kind of interesting because you run a limited time ordering. So once this clock hits 0, you're out. You got to try to find it on the secondary market if someone wants to part ways with it. And so I want to ask you about that, but just to kind of reinforce this point, like if this is something that interests you, and Daniel's not paying me anything, I just think this stuff's really cool, and I want to promote good Bears artwork. I just think that's I want more of it in my life, and so just a full disclosure, it's not like he's giving me a kickback or anything, but 4 days and 20 hours left. So if this is something that interests you, make sure you log on soon. 2 options: there's the print or an autograph print. Obviously the autograph's a little bit more. And of course, because it is Dick Butkus, it's $51 for the print. So I'm curious about the model though, to basically like create a limited print, whatever number you get from that limited time window, that becomes the print number.
Yeah. I'm certainly not the first person to do that, but as I was thinking about this project, and I did not set out to really even be a project. It was like I had done one picture. I was like, oh, let's give this a try. Topps did something like that with several of their cards, or several of their series, I should say. And as soon as I kind of latched onto that concept, I loved it. I think there's some amount of preciousness that you have to get over. Oh, this is my drawing, and it's gone in a week. I can never bring it back again. And just getting over that and thinking your best work is still ahead of you. There's still a lot left in the tank. Don't worry about it. And so that was a little hurdle I had to kind of just personally get over. I've had things for sale in the past. I've been an artist for a long time and made things available. And when you put it on the shelf in infinite quantities that the internet can offer you, it sits on the shelf and you might move several. But this model, I think, was definitely the first time I've tried it, and it changed things for me. It really turned it into I was going to say a collectible. It was a collectible before, but there's just a different essence to it when it's timed and almost like I don't want to, we call it a a badge of honor, but a cool thing like, oh, I got in at like number 32 or number 51 or whatever, you know. So you the lower the number that you got in at, it's like a cool thing. And so it's been fun to kind of stick with this model. I've not deviated from it since I started, and never made them available again. So it's just been fun to kind of watch how that has grown and formed a really positive community of folks that collect these, and it's been fun. So I answered a lot more questions.
No, it's great. I find so as a consumer, I think about it like I have a ton of web pages open on my phone for stuff that I would like to buy, and I just keep them open. And then there's sometimes where I close them. You know what? I don't want that anymore. And something like this actually does push me to make that decision, because it's like, well, I either need to make the decision. I've got 4 days to make this decision. Now, for this, again, I want to support Bear's artwork. I think it's just important to have more creative people in this space. And so when I saw this, I bought it right away, and reached out to try to promote this, because I think it's a really cool thing. But I love the idea of you know what, like it's a moment in time, and then it also probably gets you to keep working, right? Like you have to keep producing product to be able for this model to continue. But I imagine you're moving a lot more product with this this business model than you would if you, like you say, you print off 1,000 and keep them on a shelf.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, and the proof is in the pudding. I think I had a couple comic book style pieces up on my Instagram, and I sold 2. Right. And
you're selling many more than 2. I've seen the print runs. So what I wanted to do, we can come back to Butkus here, but I wanted to run through some of what I pulled from your baseball, and then I wanted to go through your football catalog so far. Like you say, it's very young in football, and then I want to talk a little bit about, pitch you some ideas for different Bears type stuff and different NFL stuff that I was thinking about today as I was thinking about this. So I just want to go through. I just pulled, and again, I'm sorry, White Sox fans, I did not see a lot of White Sox stuff. I only saw one that was obvious, but I'm not a White Sox fan, so it didn't jump out at me. But I did pull some Cubs related stuff. Curse of the Billy Goat came out, and again, these aren't available. These are sold out. These are the past. But I just wanted to have people get a flavor of what we're talking about here. Some of the artwork, obviously, very famous part of Chicago Cubs history is the Curse of the Billy Goat. Thought this was great. The Babe Ruth World Series, that was at Wrigley Field, I believe. So I'm out of my depth a little bit with baseball. I like baseball, but I don't love it. I'm pretty sure that was at Wrigley, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty cool. Another Curse of the Billy Goat. So what happened here? You had multiple, like a special edition?
Yeah, I had a variant open. By the end of that week, I had made 2. I didn't even know if I was going to have one. The deadline was coming. It's like, oh no, am I going to make it by Sunday? And when Sunday came, I had 2 done. And I couldn't decide which one I wanted to release, and so I just released both. And the second one with the red on it, that was the variant. So that was there was a limited amount of those. Once those were gone, those were gone. That was slightly different than the regular model, but
yeah, I see here. I don't know if people can read that. It's a little small on the screen, but it says 110 copies only. So there was a little bit of a artificial cap that you put on there, which I find interesting too, like a special insert.
Yeah, and that one actually, and this was one of the tricky ones too for that one. So there's 110, and those sold out in 7 minutes, and there was a lot of angry folks.
Right.
Because it was a surprise. I don't operate that way, but I operated that way here. And so I did increase the limit to 200 on this one. I learned a lot of lessons in the process in doing so. It was a hard decision to make, but I did. I upped it some and let everyone know that I was going to up it at a certain time. And so, yeah. But yeah, lessons learned.
There's some completionist collectors out there. I have met some of those people.
Yes.
This is Ferguson Jenkins, Fergie, uh, famous Cubs pitcher.
It's a collaboration with the Hall of Famer himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so this was an autographed version too?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, super nice guy. Had the opportunity to meet him before.
Cool.
The Hawk.
This was a collaboration too.
Oh man, see, I just found out about you this week, or last week, so probably good for my pocketbook. I didn't know about you before, but Andre Dawson, one of my favorites as a kid growing up. And then here's a Sox one, Sox fans. The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas. This was an early one. Looks like the 20th one that you did.
Yep. Now
collaboration.
No, this one was before I
okay.
That door opened for me.
Do you have other Sox ones? Because I didn't.
There is. I will say the Wampum Walloper. It was Dick Allen. I think maybe in the 60s or 70s. I think of his count, but the early Sox uniforms and the Phillies uniforms looked really, really similar. They were white with red pinstripes, and so I intentionally obscured the logo on the chest where it would designate if it was Phillies or Sox, and so both franchises fans could enjoy it.
Very cool. And then of course Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks, great one there, very early addition from your baseball collection. So that's baseball stuff. I like baseball. I love football. So I want to go back to the football stuff. I want to run through the catalog, and this is going to upset Bears fans, but your number one, the first edition here. So your first football comic book cover, Vince Lombardi. Why Vince Lombardi?
Now bear in mind my football releases kicked off on Super Bowl Sunday. So the Vince Lombardi trophy. I felt like I had to do this.
Yeah, you should have done it 2 weeks before when they hand out the George Hallis Trophy in the NFC Championship game.
It was always next year.
Yes. Okay, so here we got Packers legend Vince Lombardi, of course. He was part of the 7 Blocks of Granite, which was from his playing days. That's where that nickname comes from. Right. So I saw that you incorporated that. Very cool. And then you've got some quotes there from Lombardi. Obviously, a very good coach. He's no George Hallis, but he's a good coach. Their second one, again, you stuck in the NFC North, but you went to the Vikings, the Purple People Eaters. What was the inspiration behind this?
A lot of this, just me coming to it fresher than with baseball, without having a lot of institutional knowledge. The good thing about that is that it allows me to view this in a way that I aspire to in baseball. And what I mean by that is how I like to look at these things is, what if I looked at something, what if I heard the term the Green Monster or the Big Red Machine and had no context for what it was, and sort of thinking of what could that be? Right. And rather than like when it's the Green Monster, it's the fence in Fenway. I know that, but I want to kind of get past that. I don't want to just draw an outfield fence. I want to kind of think fresher, think bigger, think newer. And so football, again, without having as much institutional knowledge as I do, I'm able to come to these things a little bit more fresh. Now I know the Purple People Eaters. I know that's the Vikings lineup. But moments like this and others, like the Galloping Ghost that you'll probably get to in a second, kind of offering me the opportunity to approach it fresh. And so that's what I like to do. What I did here, I didn't want to turn these 4 gentlemen into Purple People Eaters. I wanted to think, what would it be if they were just an amalgamation of a cohesive unit that was a formidable force to their opposition.
Well, it's a really cool image. Of course, Alan Page was part of that. He ended up being a Chicago Bear in the last part of his career. Jim Marshall, very famous. Carl Eller. So it's a really cool image here. And again, as you mentioned, You then did Red Grange, the Galloping Ghost, which is one of the best, if not, top 5 NFL nickname of all time. Great nickname. What'd you learn about Red Grange, and what inspired you to do this image?
The inspiration definitely came from the nickname. It's just such a great name, and I've kind of heard that name over the years, but not really knowing much about the player. But so I kind of picked the name, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to do this now. What can I learn about him? So he was fantastic, and it was, like you said, not only a great player, but pioneered a lot of aspects of a pro athlete, and what that meant with endorsements and whatnot. And what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, Grange is very interesting because he's kind of known as the NFL's first star. He had kind of this celebrity agent who, kind of really fought with George Halas to try to get a huge percentage of the gate. It was a constant battle for how much that they were going to pay him. But, he was really a tool for George Halas to try to sell the NFL as a viable product. And, they did this barnstorming tour in 1926 where they went, all across the country. They went on a West Coast tour. They were playing multiple games a week, just to try to sell this product of professional football. And Grange, at the time, the college coaches hated the idea of professional football. And so Grange was this first legitimate star player that sort of transcended this. And the last game that he played in college, he then signed with the Bears that same year and then played out this barnstorming tour. So he was this tool to try to sell the league, but he also benefited richly by doing that. And then he left the Bears, and then he goes somewhere else, and he actually gets hurt by a Chicago Bears player, George Trafton, hurt his knee. And then he just wasn't the same guy, came back to the Bears and continued his career. And then, of course, was like a longtime play-by-play guy. So he's really enveloped in Chicago Bears history, but he's really the first, legitimate huge star of the NFL. And that goes all the way back to the 1920s. Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was going to say about him, legitimizing the NFL and kind of, what we have today is as a byproduct of him. And I think in terms of his parallels, he's like the Babe Ruth of football in a lot of ways, and a lot of parallels there too, because Babe Ruth was selling products, he was selling tickets, he ended the dead ball era, and it just brought people in the seats. A lot of obviously different specifics, but in learning about him, there was just a lot of parallels I found.
Before I go any further, I did get a comment from Dan. Dan asked, do they come with a frame? So do you want to talk about your framing option?
No, they don't. They do not come with the frame.
Okay, you have a picture of a frame.
Yeah.
So I guess I thought that maybe that's
how it could look in your home. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So no frame. Just the print comes. I assume it's backed. Packaged well and all that.
Yeah, it's on very. I don't think I have a copy here with me, unfortunately, but it's on a very thick, rigid cardboard. You can hold it straight, and it will just stay straight. And it comes packed with all the nostalgia that I can pack into it. It's got. I really wanted to recreate the essence of of going to a comic book shop or a card shop as a kid, and so. These come in craft paper bags, the same craft paper bags that I came home with my treasures as a kid, my comic book treasures. And there's a pack of old school football cards in every order. And my business card looks like here's actually one example. My business card looks like a sports ticket, so it's
very cool.
It's a tangible experience. With one of these, and I think that for me that's as much of the project as the artwork is just the experience of getting one. There is a company, Crafty Comics. They do they make frames specifically for these. They're an obscure size, so framing unless you get something custom or from Crafty Comics, it's a little less, little harder to frame.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll get that link from you and I'll put it in a story on Windy City
Sure.
Gridiron so that people can view that in the frame if that's something that they want to have to go along with this. So I want to talk about other ideas. Now, obviously, you're not going to share with me what your plan is, or if you are, that would be cool. But like, do you have any like obvious things that you've kind of penciled out as your projects coming up that you feel comfortable sharing, or maybe I can throw some ideas. I don't know how you want to play that.
Sure. Well, I never share what's exactly on the table.
Okay.
I might give some vague hints, but kind of out of the gate, I'm definitely drawn to my era that I grew up in. I love the Joe Montana, the Jerry Rice, Emmett Smith, Boomer Esiason was my guy growing up. Danny White, I loved. Danny White was even before baseball. Like Danny White, I think was the first athlete that I loved. I had Danny White pajamas as a kid. But the stars of that era is kind of where my brain first goes to. Obviously, there's such a much longer and richer history of the sport. And with baseball, I kind of did the same thing. I kind of started in that era and moved my way outwards. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some 80 stars coming up.
All right. So I'm going to start with pitching you some ideas.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with non-Bears stuff and then get to Bears stuff.
Okay.
So as I was thinking about some of the obvious pieces for other teams, and probably because you already done the Purple People Eaters, I would say that the Fearsome Foursome is the top of my list.
Mm-hmm.
Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen, Rosie Greer, and Lamar Lundy. I love Deacon Jones. He's one of the best characters. I mean, you could do a whole series on him, and it would probably sell pretty well. He's a fascinating guy. Fearsome Foursome is a great nickname. Old Rams teams, just great. Deacon Jones, of course, invented the term sack, and so that's something to explore a little bit. I think that would be really fun. The Doomsday defense of the Cowboys, I think, would be obviously lend itself to the comic book. A little newer would be the Seattle Seahawks defense of the Legion of Boom. I think that's a really good nickname to play with that. So I wanted to give some love to some other defenses. Of course, the Chicago Bears have a great history. They have a great history of defense as well. But I'm going all the way back to Bronco Nagurski in the 1930s. I think that's someone that would be fascinating to try to capture. He actually left pro football so that he could go do professional wrestling and became the heavyweight champion of the world, and then came back in 1946 during the war, or not 1946, 1942. You know what? I can't remember the year. 43 maybe. Anyway, he came back on one of the war years where like George House was off fighting World War II. He's on a Navy ship in the South Pacific, and he convinced Bronco Nagurski to come back and help them win a championship. And I think it might have been 43. So they were decimated by World War II. So that's a lot of fun.
Not the first time wrestling has touched this project.
Oh,
there is a minor league player by the name of Randy Poffo that kind of played with the Reds, played with the Cincinnati Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals. Sorry, minor league system, and ended up leaving the game and to follow in his father's footsteps. His father was a professional wrestler, and he adopted the stage name Macho Man Randy Savage. So I did a Randy Poffo piece a couple weeks ago, kind of celebrating the baseball side of his career.
Oh, that's fascinating. I thought of a crossover football, baseball. Obviously, there could be Bo Jackson or there could be Deion Sanders and in guys like that. But I was thinking about a crossover checkout in the 1920s. George Trafton, I already mentioned him. Double George Trafton mention. So he's a Hall of Fame center for the Bears from the 20s. He was also an amateur boxer.
Really?
And he had a fight where they sold tickets and everything with Chicago White Sox first baseman Art Briles. No, that's the coach of Baylor. I think it's Briles though. And so they didn't like each other, and so they actually boxed for as an event for money. And so famous baseball player, famous football player at the time, actually had like a boxing match in the 1920s. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
Imagine boxing some of your old coworkers.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They were different back then.
Yeah.
Of course, you could get a lot of material. You mentioned 80s, so Joe Montana, all that kind of stuff. There's the Super Bowl Bears, the 85 Bears, and that era Bears have just it's a rich text. You can pull a lot out of there. That defensive line is amazing. You've got Dan Hampton, his nickname's Danimal. Richard Dent's nickname is the Sack Man, and then Steve McMichael's nickname is Mongo. I mean, he's got multiple nicknames, but those obviously lend themselves. They would honestly, I believe that they would sell quite well. And, Bears fans are very much into that, a little bit of nostalgia. You got the Super Bowl Shuffle. Mm-hmm. If you did a Walter Payton one, I imagine it'll be your top seller. So, just putting that out there, anything that's well done that has Walter Payton involved in it will do well. And then I want to put a personal shout, bug in your ear.
Okay.
And it's a little more recent. So hopefully, maybe down the line. But Charles Tillman, he created what's called the Peanut Punch. And the Peanut Punch gets mentioned every week by broadcasters. And it's when a defensive back forces a fumble by punching the ball out from the ball carrier. And he really invented that, brought that into the forefront, and it's nicknamed after him. His nickname's Peanut. They call it the Peanut Punch. He's my favorite player of all time, and I think it's a really cool piece of professional football history that's more recent. So I think that should at least be put on the board.
I love it.
All right, so there's my idea generation for you.
Okay, thank you. That's some R&D. Thank you.
I want to kind of shift gears a little bit away from the stuff that you've done, and I want to talk about just like sports artwork in general. I want to bring up a couple stories that I've written, and just kind of talk you through a little bit of that. So I wrote this story last year. It's called I called it Brushstrokes of Genius. This is on the Windy City Gridiron website. It came out last year. If you follow me on Twitter, it's my pinned tweet. This is the story that I'm probably most proud of. But what I did was I actually tracked down the son of this artist named Jerry Keefe, who he developed 38 program covers over his tenure. And I tracked down his son, and it turns out that this artist was actually really good friends with George Halas. Like they had met and became friends, and this is how he kind of got the gig to do this stuff. But he was a professional trained cartoonist. He studied in the Chicago Art School. Did some work under some Nobel prize winners for cartooning and all this. So he's got this background. He had his own syndicated strip for a while, but he did these Bears covers, and there was nothing out there about him. So I tracked this down. I wrote this story, but it's not quite a comic book look, but it is like of an era. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you've ever thought about or played with, is doing like game covers or anything like that?
Certainly. Maybe not specifically game covers, but I named the project Popfly Pop Shop and not Popfly Comics because I want to leave it open to do other things, and certainly any sort of storytelling device or vehicle is very interesting to me. Be it this program covers or movie posters or there's a ton of ways that could go, but super interested in doing comics and more.
And I should mention, for those of you watching on YouTube, not all of these images are, of course, from Jerry Keefe. This one here starts his images. This is a previous image. It's more detail in the story, but this was 1939, and this was Keefe's first year in 1943, and then these are Keefe images through this one. This is the first year of the Vikings. Actually, this is the first time that they hosted the Minnesota Vikings in their expansion year. Thought that was a great image there.
Cool.
Bear that's trying to light a cannon on fire to shoot down the Viking ship. And then these here, I wanted to kind of point out, these are images from Israel Adonijah, who he has his own comic book shop that he runs in the Chicago area. And he had an agreement or a contract with the Chicago Bears to develop these game programs and other imagery around, where he used the current players and created a storyline around what they were up to and what they were doing, and kind of created a comic book universe around the players, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. Had you been familiar with his work at all?
Yeah, recently, not up until the last couple months. Hadn't come across him, but I have since, and I love the stuff. And obviously, there's a lot of similarities there for sure.
Well, I mean, kind of, but not. I mean, he's got the superhero thing going on, and they have super speed or super strength or whatever. But I just thought it's a contemporary, I guess, of your work, and pretty cool. It'd be interesting to see if maybe you guys can do a collaboration or something at some point. These are local artists here off to the side that did some game programs. The Bears have been working with the local art scene to try to get some engagement with local artists to develop some of these programs. And they're the first year was digital only, and then this last year they sold prints off of the work. So which is it's too bad they didn't sell prints the first year. Just give those artists a little bit of income. I'm sure they paid them, but it would have been cool. And I think they did well. A couple of them I think were sold out by the end of the year. So pretty cool images for that. Anyway, I want to get rid of like boring program covers that is just like a photograph of someone. No offense to the photographers out there, just like I just want like a little bit more creativity. Let's get more artwork into football. And then I wanted to bring in the story that I wrote a few years ago, and the idea here was that to award the best player on the team at any one time the championship belt. So I called it the Championship Belt Series. Started it all the way back 1920, and I teamed with Whiskey Ranger, who I haven't heard from in a while, and so Will, if you're out there, come back. We need you. But he developed these really. I had this image in my mind of like fight posters, like old time fight posters, and so he did a great job of really capturing that. And so each fight that identified the top 2 or sometimes the top 3 players of the time, and then came up with a name for the fight, the rumble in the jungle, right? Like this is the gristmill grinder, right? So this was back when they were the Decatur Staley's starch making company. So play on that, and then I would give each guy a nickname. Sometimes they had a nickname, like George Trafton was known as the Brute, so that works. And sometimes I just made up a nickname because. Some of these guys don't have nicknames. And so I went through, the entire history of the Chicago Bears to do this. And, there's your guy, Rick Grange, the Galloping Ghost. So this is just one of my favorites that we've put together.
That's awesome.
I have others. I just kind of wanted to run through them. I opened up all of them. Oh, I also gave them all walk-up music. So there's YouTube videos in here for guys. So there's a baseball crossover, right? So each guy had a walk up music. It's like walking to the ring, but kind of like walking up in
I love it
in baseball. But so this is actually so I'm showing this image from 1948-49 with Johnny Lujack and Bulldog Turner, which Bulldog Turner, great nickname. Does this image remind you of anything?
Not off the top of my head.
All right, so 48-49. Are you a card collector?
Not so much anymore. I grew up one, but I'm not active anymore.
So 48-49 is the era of the Leaf football cards, which is like the first year they really had a full set. and he pulled this imagery off of that. Like
Oh, cool.
he as an homage to that. So this one's one of my favorites. I have a lot of these printed off and up on my walls.
Nice.
And then I told you I would show you some that I did so that we could laugh at my inability. This is another great guy here. This is Ed Sprinkle, who just recently got put into the Hall of Fame, long after his death, but he got put into the Hall of Fame here on the anniversary of the Hall of Fame, and his nickname was the Claw. And he was kind of known as kind of a dirty player. So maybe like in year 5, you can come back to the Claw. But anyway, Will kind of disappeared on me, and so I had to do some stuff, some Photoshop stuff to try to finish this out. So all of these are mine. So here you got Olin Kreutz and Brian Urlacher, and I made like a old time shootout. You're not going to hire me for any contract work. I put Devin Hester in the club.
I love this.
So they each had like their own little personality, and again, kind of, the Rage in the Cage, just coming up with names, to label the fights. So this is the kind of creative work that I find really fascinating, and I enjoy, trying to, I've got an idea in my head. I want to put it out there. How do we kind of do that? And it's, words are powerful, but I wonder how much people actually read what I wrote. First, just like looked at the posters and said, "Oh, who'd he say won? Oh, okay." I'm just curious, maybe as an artist, like, what do you think of the football community? And because this is only four posters in, right? You're only 4 images in.
Right.
Have you had the same response as your baseball community? Do you feel like there's a lot of overlap of your customers? Like, what is it that you're seeing, and are you confident that this is going to be worth your time?
First of all, I love that project that you just showed me. That's awesome. That's the kind of thinking that I think is just so fun, and sports in general, not just baseball, football, but sports in general could use that. And I one thing I say often is, make baseball weird again, and there's a certain time where you'd have just weird oddball stuff that you just don't see anymore, like a Darryl Strawberry pencil, or a Bo Jackson, I don't know, pencil box, or a Dale Murphy card on the bottom of a lid of a Burger King cup. Just weird, just odd stuff, but that has so much character in it, and there's just so much fun in it. And so I think one thing that I've wanted to maintain is the fun in this project. I just want to lean into compelling stories and have fun doing it. And so your project really like reminded me of that, just that fun that I'm seeking myself. So that's awesome work. And so answer your question in terms of football, it is still new, and there is crossover. A lot of baseball fans are football fans. Some of the baseball fans that collect these are even more football fans than they are baseball fans. There certainly is that crossover, and in a lot of ways, it's still new, and I'm still finding that audience, and honestly, to see if that audience is interested in this. Luckily, my numbers aren't like my first numbers when I started baseball, when I was doing 11, 12, 13 in a print run. So my numbers aren't there. But I still think there's traction, even in baseball. There's traction to be had in this, and there's people that still need to know about this, and I hope would know about this. So certainly room to go up. And one thing that I've noticed so far about the football fans or the football community is like, holy cow, like fandom in football is like nothing I've ever experienced. There's it makes the wildest folks in the outfield bleachers look very conservative compared to the super fan, like the super fans are characters in and of themselves. Like the super fans become well known characters of them, like in and of themselves. And I just don't see that kind of fervor in baseball and passion. So it's been really fun actually, just to see that, and to see anybody so passionate about what they love is an awesome thing. And be it comics or Legos or whatever, but just seeing someone love something with all their heart is just awesome to see. And there's that's it. Football has that in spades.
I'm curious, like, you know, the development of your first four is all NFC North teams, but you're sitting out on the West Coast. Like, I'm just, because like I have all these Bears ideas for you. Like I'm ready, but like how does that? Is it just happenstance, or you gonna spread it out so that you can spread the love amongst your fans? Like, what's happening here?
For sure. It is happenstance. What 50% of my prints so far for football are Chicago Bears.
Right.
at this time, I'm certainly going to branch out. I approach this in the same way that I approach baseball, and this is not a hard and fast rule, but I want to at least try to represent every team, at least once. And some teams I've gotten to multiple times, other teams not at all, but I've gotten to most. And I will eventually get to all of them. And the same thing for football. I want something for everybody. And yes, they're going to be duplicates, and there's just some nicknames and characters I can't resist. So forgive me if I do more than one or two or three or four Bears or Vikings or whoever, But going to where inspiration leads me, but also try to include everybody.
Yeah, and the Bears have been around for 100 years, so
Yeah.
you can be forgiven. They have a richer history than everybody else, and the most Hall of Famers, and some incredible nicknames. So very cool stuff. Well, I'm not going to keep you all night. I probably could, because I really like this stuff. I really appreciate you adding your talents and your creative juice to the the world of Chicago Bears artwork. We need more people doing it, just because we need more stuff like this. We need, what I'm pointing behind me and all these program covers on my wall. We need more of this stuff. I don't want the glossy, winged C that, from the Chicago Bears, like, it's boring, right? Like, I don't want that. I want something with character. I want something, a take on it, a twist, something new. So I really appreciate you, coming on and talking about it. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. And just building on that a little bit too, I've got a friend of mine, fellow baseball artist. His name is Matthew Lee Rosen. And he made this comment once, and I loved it, and I kept it with me, and I mentioned it a lot. He's like, I don't want to make decorations, I want to tell stories, and that has been such a great thing to keep in my head as I go. It's like to find the story, not just to. I don't want to decorate. I don't want to just decorate a man cave. I want to tell a story and make it compelling, and even if something is ordinary, find something compelling in it.
Awesome, Daniel. Well, I really appreciate it. Guys, we're going to be back next week. Robert, Lester, and I, and Jacob and Fonte, we're going to be covering the draft all day too. So 6:00 Central Time, we are going to be live streaming the entire night for the draft. So you'll see more of me and this artwork behind me and all that kind of stuff come there. But if you're interested at all, check out Daniel's work. Check out his webpage. Just head on over to Popfly Pop Shop. Again, you've got a couple days if you are interested in the Dick Butkus print. $51 for the base, and it's really cool. I love what he's doing. So head on over there. And Daniel, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. So what a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.